All right, it's pizza time. Roasted sweet beet pizza. Let's try that again. Roasted sweet beet pizza, courtesy of my good friend Cynthia Pasquella. It's a really simple recipe. I've actually never made this, so I'm looking forward to doing this together with you. So join me, get all your stuff. All you're gonna need is some gluten-free flour. I'm using this brand, Bob's Red Mill. And this is an all-purpose baking flour, really good for pizza crusts and stuff like that. So I'm gonna use 1 cup of that. I'm gonna put it into my bowl. Well, let's try this again without that in the way. So I know if you're like me, that's about 3/4 of a cup. And I'm just gonna top this off. If you're like me and you really like pizza, but you don't like how you feel after pizza, then I think you'll enjoy this recipe because it is gluten-free, which means that you don't have all the nasty effects of gluten. And that's always a good thing. So we're gonna put in 1 teaspoon, I believe. Yes, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Just gonna get that out. I never really understand the difference between baking soda and baking powder. I'm not too sure. That is about right. And we're just gonna give this a little mix. We're gonna throw in 1/4 cup of water next. So I'm just going to add some water in here. And about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And now we're gonna mix. So again, if you find this is too liquidy or whatever, then you can just add stuff in terms of more flour. And actually, before we continue, I have some beets that I've just peeled, and you can tell by my hand being all red, that are roasting in the oven right now. So they're softening because we're gonna be putting those on the pizza when this dough is all ready to go. So this is gonna make a pretty small crust here. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of double the recipe, okay? So I'm gonna put in another cup of flour because this is a serving for half a person. Put in a little bit more baking powder. That's about a teaspoon. And we'll add a little bit more olive oil and a little bit more water. So I just doubled the recipe, okay? So now I've got a little bit more batter to work with, which will make a little bit more of a crust that we can enjoy. And as I was saying, the beets are kind of softening in the oven because we're gonna make a sweet beet pizza, which basically means we're gonna be using red onion and beets as our toppings. But you can, like, once you have this down, you can make this with anything. You can put in mushrooms, you can put on like sardines and anchovies if you enjoy that kind of stuff. It could be basic, you know, it could be a basic margarita pizza where you've got tomatoes or tomato sauce, basil, you know, some really simple stuff. Okay, so I hope that's all we need. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm gonna take out the pan from the oven because we're gonna need that in just a moment. So I'll get my makeshift oven mitt. Okay, so that's pretty hot. Oven's at 450. So yeah, my beets have been doing their thing. I'm just gonna put those to the side. And once we get that off, I'm gonna give the pan a little bit of a rinse to cool it down. And obviously if you have a second pan, it's even better to do. So you don't have to do all this. But now you're getting the full scope of the project, at least according to the way I'm putting it together. Okay, so beets are done. I'm just gonna run this under some cold water and then give it a wipe, and then we're gonna put in, just kind of coat it with a bit of coconut oil or olive oil. Although olive oil I wouldn't recommend because it can be, you know, denatured and hurt by the hot oven. So I would go with coconut oil, even though it's not the best for baking purposes with respect to like pizzas and stuff. but it's still a healthier option. Again, because this is very, very sensitive to heat, so we don't want to, overdo this as a base for cooking oils. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a quick dry. All right, so that is that. Coconut oil. I'm a little bit all over the place today. So I'm going to use this very same napkin and find some coconut oil deep down in the trenches and bring it up here somehow, hopefully. If we've got some. This will help prevent the crust to stick, which is always a good thing, right? All right, so now we are going to, I think this actually needs a little bit more water. So based on my, my vast experience in pizza making, I think this dough requires a little more water. Famous last words, right? All right, so let's see how this goes. Now, just in case you're wondering, this all-purpose flour is, just let me read you, I think it's based out of, well, I'll get to that in a second, but it's definitely not wheat-based, obviously. I think it might be a combination of potato and bean flours. Okay, so let's give that a shot. Work this dough. Now maybe this is too moist. I have no idea. If this turns into an absolute mess, then we will know firsthand. Okay, so yeah. So Cynthia, let's have some fun with this, right? We're gonna put this onto the cookie onto the cookie sheet. And again, this is just me being real. I'm not a professional chef. This is the same stuff you would be going through. I'm just kind of going through with you. Some of these recipes I'm a little more well-versed in, others not so much. This would be an example of one of them. So the crust is definitely pretty sticky. All right, so let's say that that's gonna work, okay, hopefully. And we'll just start with that. I'll wash my hands off before I can no longer move them. Get all this lovely pizza crust dough off. And this might be one of those things that you just kind of work at it for a couple tries until you get it. I am definitely not expecting this to work out 100% the first time around. So from here, I'll do the easy part, which is put on my beets. I probably won't need all these beets, but we'll go with 4 of them, and we'll chop up some red onion. And the whole idea here is like nice thin slices. That way it's gonna, cook nice and nicely and kind of meld nicely into the crust. Okay, so there we have our pseudo pizza. Now let's put it in the oven at 450 degrees for a whopping 15 minutes, and we'll cross our fingers and hopefully that it turns out all right. Cool? All right. Okay, so we have taken the pizza out of the oven. It was in there for about 15 minutes, and to my surprise, it actually stayed in one piece, which is great. So we have that accomplished. We're gonna finish off. It's been cooling. It's still pretty warm, as you can see. Probably some of the steam coming out. We're gonna finish off by just drizzling a little bit of olive oil on top, or as much as you like, really. Cynthia calls for a little touch of honey as well, if you like. I'm just gonna forgo that. I'll just add a little bit of salt. And I want to give this a shot. I want to give this a shot on camera because I've never tried this and it looks good. And hopefully it tastes good as well. I'm a big pizza, that's kind of a big part of my composition, I think, over the years is a lot of pizza. So I think my body has made up to a certain degree of it, which is obviously not the best thing all the time, but that is one of my weaknesses. So I can speak from an expert's point of view as to good pizza. Let's give this a shot. You know what? That's not bad. You know, if you really want to stay gluten-free and you want a good flour, that's actually pretty good. It's, I'm sure there's ways that we can make this better in terms of making it a little bit thinner perhaps, adding a little more olive oil on, maybe some different sauces like a marinara sauce. But just plain like this is actually pretty nice. I'm encouraged now because with this, I can now play around. I can add in some marinara sauce. I can add in some other really cool ingredients that would enhance the flavor. But even just with the beets and onion and the olive oil, it's actually pretty good. So surprisingly simple once you have that batter out of your hands and into the pan. And there it is, 15 minutes later, we have a really nice pizza that's gluten-free and full of awesome ingredients like beets and onions and whatever else you want to put on top. So there we go. That is our roasted sweet beet pizza.